All right, hey y'all. We have today we have Jeff Warren, who is a OG of political or Philadelphia sports podcasting. Has the longest running Philadelphia sports podcast. Tell people a little about yourself, Jeff.
Absolutely, yeah. The Philadelphia Sports Table podcast show. We've been around since April 2013. It's something that my buddies and I at that time said, you know what, we're passionate about Philly sports. Want to talk about the Sixers, Flyers, Phillies, and yes, the Philadelphia Eagles. So let's start a podcast. Let's just talk about it. Let's get our thoughts out there. We're a fan-based show. We're not credentialed reporters or anything, thank God. So, so it's been a fun ride, and you can follow us on Twitter at Philadelphia PST.
So you started way back in 2013. What were the tools you were using at that point to even throw things up on the internet?
I was still using, at that point, I was using a WordPress site, frankly, and not to get too deep into the mud, but just, publishing the podcast on the WordPress site. We had a crappy little website that looked absolutely terrible at the time, but it's something that we just started, and people were actually listening to it. I mean, people were like, oh my gosh, and just continue to grow and grow and grow. Average podcast, as we know, last 7 episodes before people throw in the towel. Yeah. So we just kept going and going and going. We've talked to some amazing guests over the years. A lot of people ask us, why don't you have more players on the show and stuff like that? And we don't want that, because it's always canned answers. It's canned responses. We like talking to reporters. We like talking to bloggers. We like talking to even retired players, because they're a little bit more candid. You're able to get a little bit more information from them. So it's been a real fun ride.
Absolutely. Yeah, they have a job to do.
They do.
Exactly what you're saying is the truth, because they can't come onto your show and really say, why did they not throw you Devontae Smith? It was a close game. Why did they not throw you the ball?
Exactly. Exactly. Devontae, why aren't you being targeted and utilized as much as we would all like you to be? He's not going to say anything. What's he going to say?
Absolutely. So getting into the birds here. So we had the Pro Bowl selections come up, and we had Kelsey and Darius Slay were the 2 Eagles to make the Pro Bowl.
And Dallas Goedert.
Oh, Dallas Goedert.
Yes.
Was he an alternate?
No, I think Dallas is. He may be an alternate. No, I'm thinking about it. I'm not. I'm forgetting. I know Dallas Goedert definitely made it for sure.
Okay, so Jalen made the alternate as well, yes. Which is no small thing. I mean, it's a big deal to be of all these players in the league.
Absolutely.
But who, even considering the alternates, who's the biggest snub in your eyes?
I mean, look, I can't just name one guy, because I got to name 2, because they are the bookends for the Eagles offensive line. I think there was initial shock when neither Lane Johnson or Jordan Mailata had made the Pro Bowl team. I mean, come on, folks here. Neither was even an alternate, which doesn't seem possible, Matt. Look, Lane Johnson. Look, I'm wearing Lane Johnson's jersey right here. I actually had this, a real funny story real quick. When when Philadelphia was hosting NFL draft years and years ago, I'm standing outside a hotel. I had to get back to my hometown where my daughter was having some surgery on her arm. I'm wearing this jersey, and all of a sudden Lane Johnson comes up to me and says, do you want a picture and an autograph? It was absolutely wonderful, and I haven't taken it off since. So getting back to our discussion here, look, Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata, they both played at an extraordinary level this year, and I don't see how both tackles on one of the NFL's best offensive lines could be snubbed like this. But then you look at the fact of where this team is at, the record, the 7-7 record, and I think that kind of speaks to why they aren't necessarily or have been considered. Trent Williams for the 49ers, Tristan Wirfs for the Buccaneers, Tyron Smith of the Cowboys also making the NFC team. All 3 come from winning teams, and that's often how the voting goes. It's sad to see, given what Lane Johnson has been through specifically this past year. I think his story in and of itself is a fantastic story. Having to sit out some time to get himself right from a mental perspective, him being able to come back, defying the odds within his own life, and really making and continuing to make a positive impact for this Eagles offensive line, considering where this Eagles offense has gone from a running perspective. This Eagles team is not 7-7 without Lane Johnson and specifically Jordan Mailata. So they definitely got snubbed, Matt.
Oh yeah, big time. And I paid a little more attention this year to the voting. And I realize what they do is they just pick tackles, and they're always picking left tackles and just assuming that it's the same position.
Right.
And it's absurd because, like you said, I mean, I understand that the Eagles are 7-7, and they're not a dominant team.
Right.
But that offensive line is a dominant offensive line.
Absolutely is.
They're running for 200. You can pretty much book it. And yeah, Miles Sanders is a good player. Jordan Howard's he was on the practice squad, but he's a good player. Jalen Hurts is a good player. But if you have, your average NFL offensive line, that team's not running for 175, 200 every week. And there are reasons for that. I mean, Lane Johnson has a history here of being a dominant player. He's not as good as Kelsey, but if you're going to put Kelsey in, I don't understand how Lane doesn't make it in. I totally agree with you there.
Absolutely. Look, he did miss some time this year, and again, going back to the reasons why he missed some time this year, and perhaps that's a negative against him by those who are voting. It's sad that if that's the case, but unfortunately, the simplicity of the NFL and Pro Bowl voting, that's what we see, as you were just talking about, and as I said earlier, it's usually those teams who have winning records, they often get the yes votes. And that's what's really sad about the situation for sure.
He'll be vindicated with the NFL top 100. You know how the peers vote on that in summer, or it'll come out like 4th of July or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And by the way, Dallas Goedert is an alternate, just to let everybody know. Yes.
Dallas Goedert has been amazing. It was sad for me to see Zach Ertz go, because obviously I'm a Eagles guy, but it's nice to watch him. He's producing in Arizona. So
absolutely. Look, I think with certain team players that we have watched now, Matt, for so long, and based on what Zach Ertz did in the Super Bowl too, getting us that Super Bowl, he's in our hearts forever. And as cheesy as that may sound, he's in our hearts forever. We don't want to see him go, but I think the logical, rational, and also from just a sheer professional football perspective, he is on the downslide. And that's going to really start to manifest itself likely over the course of these next couple years. And we've got the future in Dallas Goedert. And again, he's making the Pro Bowl as an alternate here. He's the future of the tight end position for the Philadelphia Eagles. And we've seen, especially this past week, 135 yards from him. We know that he can catch the ball. He can make plays. He can get open. He's a great route runner. He's the future. And as much as we miss Zach Ertz, it's Dallas Goedert time.
It's so funny because now that Micah Parsons for the Cowboys is such a dominant player, to be honest, it's kind of like they got us back, because at that pick, we kind of they feel like Dallas Goedert, the Cowboys, it was there for the Cowboys to take, and the Eagles
exactly
and grabbed Goddard. I'm glad we did. But good thing at this point, now they're throwing Micah Parsons out there to play corner. So who knows? I mean,
gosh, guy can do anything. It pains me. It pains me as an Eagles fan to see Micah Parsons in a Cowboys uniform, because you see this right here. I'm not sure if you see this here on our stream.
Yeah.
This is my degree from Penn State. I'm a Penn State alum through and through. Loved watching Micah Parsons at Beaver Stadium for those years when he played there. And it pains me to see him in a Cowboys uniform. Oh my gosh, just like just like other. Oh my gosh, Sean Lee. You know, when he was there. It pains me, man.
And Micah Parsons is from Philly, right?
Yeah, around the area. Yes, it pains me, man.
Oh, too. So a recent episode, I think it was your last episode before you went on Christmas break. You talked about college coaches moving to the NFL and it not being such a good. Obviously, the context here is Mr. Meyer, having himself removed as the head football coach. Months too late, in my opinion. But So why do you think that it is that these situations don't work out?
It's really interesting how on the Philadelphia Sports Table this past week, like you said, Matt, we talked about this subject, and we've kind of mentioned it a few times over the years. Just why don't front offices, whether it's within the NFL, the NBA, they just continue making the same mistakes? They'll see a quote successful college coach bring them in, and all of a sudden they're going to fix their program. It just doesn't work like that. The history suggests that it doesn't work like that. Yes, Cliff Kingsbury, he's doing some good things out in Arizona. He could potentially be an outliner. But listen, college teams are not as equally matched as the professional game. I mean, notice how, Alabama in the top 5 in football year after year. Before that, we can go back to the years of, 25 years of Nebraska. At one point, it was Notre Dame, basically in the 80s. And although there are those dynasties, most pro teams have at least a shot of beating any other pro team when they meet. There's no Alabama versus Mercer University type games in the NFL. And I think a lot of the college system is based on the coaches and the school's ability to really, find and attract top high school talent. But in the pro leagues, more of that is done by just, as we know, front offices. So rather than visiting a player's home and kissing up to their parents and the kid, the players are acquired through very complex salary and bonus-based formulas. So you have to watch the salary cap in professional sports and how that translates to how coaches are able to do what they need to do in the NFL to find success. It all comes down to leadership. It all comes down to leadership. And a lot of these college coaches have a certain level of leadership that only goes so far in the college ranks. And when they get to the professional level, a lot of them just don't have it. And as my co-host Eric said this past week on the show, it's interesting how billionaires of these NFL teams just don't see it. They just don't care. They're billionaires. They say, oh boy, this guy in Urban Meyer has success. Let's bring him in. And that is it. That is it. And it just doesn't work because they're billionaires. What do they care? They see somebody that has success and says they're going to be able to duplicate it. It happens time and time again. And we kind of went through it with Chip Kelly to an extent, even though Chip had some success here. I mean, he wasn't a Urban Meyer or Nick Saban type of failure in the NFL, but it happened with Chip too. And a lot of that dealt with relationship building or lack of relationship building. It just doesn't work. And I hope that NFL teams, owners, and front offices realize that in the future, you should just stop doing that. Just stop doing the college coach thing because it doesn't work.
I'm totally with you. Everything you said. I mean, the issue that I think the reason why it doesn't work, one of the principal reasons, there are many reasons that there could be a whole podcast or series about. Oh yeah. but it's as if in the NFL, if you win the Super Bowl, you get the number 1 overall pick. That's how the college recruiting system works. That's not how it works in the NFL.
Right.
You have a dearth of options. You win a Super Bowl, you have guys who want to get paid now. Right. It's not the same kind of thing where folks are going to get shipped out and all that. And so in college, the systems really govern how well your team's going to go in the long haul, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. In the NFL, talent's going to govern. So
absolutely,
how good the players you have on your roster who can make plays, and that was really tough for Chip Kelly. You invoked Chip Kelly, so it was a perfect example. He believed that it was his option or his system that made LaShawn McCoy a great running back, that made Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin. I mean, he broke up a really good football team. It's amazing that they ended up in the same decade winning the Super Bowl, but it is incredibly improbable that would have happened because what Chip Kelly did to the Philadelphia Eagles is, should be a crime against coaching.
Absolutely, a crime against coaching. Listen, Matt, professional player, think of it like this too. Professional players have different motivations than college players, and it's essentially what you were kind of saying. I remember a story about one of the greatest coaches in history, Vince Lombardi, when he took over as coach for the New York Giants. He allegedly tried to make the players run laps and do bleacher drills and stuff like that, when they made mistakes out on the field or whatever. And professional players just kind of looked at him like, no, I'm not doing this.
I'm not doing a damn lap.
Yeah, I'm not running laps and doing bleacher drills, you old man. No, I'm not doing that. So there are different motivations for college players than there are for professional players. And I think we got to keep that in mind.
Man, like I said, we'll have to come back to that another time because that is you could do a whole documentary and series because there's so many failures and stories to be told. I'm sure LaShawn McCoy or Deshaun Jackson could talk a lot about this because yes. So speaking of coaches, one of our former coaches now Andy Reid is it seems to be that he's back in the saddle in control of the AFC. In my eyes, I think that now the Kansas City Chiefs have kind of stormed back. I think they've won 9 straight games.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you consider them the team to beat in the AFC? Do you consider them to be the team to beat in the NFL?
Oh, definitely in the AFC. I mean, Matt, just take a look at what that defense has done over the latter half of I should say the second half of the season. My gosh. I mean, they were a disaster the first few weeks of the season. And all of a sudden, Steve Spagnuolo has that defense just running and just making plays, whether or not they're getting pressure on the quarterback or whether or not they're making, plays with their secondary. I mean, this is a defense that has come a long way, I should say, in the course of just the latter part of this season. And I think when you're talking about playoff football, defense is so incredibly important. Sure, we love to see the type of games that we saw, in Super Bowl 52 with the Patriots against the Eagles, where it was well over 500 yards of offense and just flashy passes from both teams. It was fun. It was just completely like you're on the edge of your seat. But in the end,
there was a punt. I don't think there was a punt in the whole.
But in the end, defense wins playoff games. And when you have a strong, stable defense, that's going to take you very, very far in the playoffs for sure. So absolutely, from the AFC standpoint, the Chiefs are definitely the team to beat for sure. And I think that they're going to be beating Pittsburgh this week too. I mean, I know Vegas, I think they had them at 8.5 points. I think they're going to be able to do it if the defense remains strong. But in terms of overall in the NFL, you can't count Aaron Rodgers out. And listen, as much as I really don't like the guy for how he handled certain things this season, quite frankly, from a personal perspective, he still did. I mean, listen, I broke my toe a few years back, and it was the worst pain ever. And this guy's out on the field with turf toe or whatever toe injury he has, getting it done, and he's dominant. His offensive line is doing a fantastic job. Devontae Adams is catching balls. He's catching touchdowns as well, as we saw during the Christmas Day game. And I really think the Green Bay Packers are going to be a force to be reckoned with during the playoffs as well.
Yeah, I'd honestly be shocked. I'd be shocked. I think the Chiefs are the class of the AFC, and I think the Packers are the class of the NFC. And I mean, we're both wearing Eagles jerseys here, but it got to be realistic. The Eagles, I'd be thrilled if they won one game. There's no way if the Eagles are playing the Packers in the playoffs, they're going to get mowed down. 44-10. But
absolutely, we'll kind of get to that in a little bit. I think just about where the Eagles are going to be going for sure.
Absolutely. So, but before we're going to jump the gun here, because what we don't know whether the Eagles, we're talking right now, kind of musing about the Eagles in the playoffs. That's not a certainty yet.
Right.
They still have to. They have 3 games left. They've got to win at least, I would say, 2 of them. Yeah. To even be in consideration. But we do know, because of Mr. Wentz, the Philadelphia Eagles have 3 first-round picks.
Yes.
Do you trust Howie Roseman with 3 first-round picks?
It's interesting. We've been talking about this on the PST podcast show over the course of the season, and I have to say, Matt, I've been trying to take a step back and looking at Howie Roseman's work in terms of the draft. Of course, we know that the past 4 first-round picks have, outside of Devontae Smith, have been absolutely terrible. They just have. But I think it's important for us to realize as Eagles fans too, where he has actually hit. I mean, the tight end of the future we were just talking about in Dallas Goedert. Whether we're talking about Jordan Mailata as well, Landon Dickerson and what he's done as a rookie this past year. There have been picks. I think he's a mediocre type of general manager. I don't think there's anything I'm tired of people talking about how special he is with cap management, blah, blah, blah. Everybody does that in the NFL. Every team does. But I think when we're talking about these 3 first-round picks, I said it this past week on our show that my one goal for any Philadelphia sports team would be this for 2022, that the Eagles actually hit on 2 of those 3 first-round picks. Wow. 2 of them. That's all I want. I want 2 Pro Bowlers in the first round. Do I think it's possible? Absolutely it is, but I don't necessarily trust Howie based on his track record over the past 4 drafts. I really don't. I mean, and we have a Heisman Trophy winner in
Yeah.
Devontae Smith,
Yeah.
who, and even though he's leading receiver on the team, not being utilized necessarily as much as he can be. And maybe that's because of the quarterback play, the lack of that quarterback being accurate at times during the season. Perhaps that's why. However, I just don't necessarily trust him with the first round picks. But I have to say again, he's had some good picks as well. And I think it's important that we do realize that, and that it's not just Howie at times too. It is the scouting department. And I know they've gone through changes with the scouting department over the past few years. So let's hope I want 2. Matt, I want 2. I don't think that's a lot for us to ask.
It's the later round picks. And what I've seen, he's actually good at those. Like you said, Mailata, a number of those.
Quez Watkins.
Yeah, great picks later. But early on, I mean, Marcus
Smith.
Oh my God. I mean, there's so many. I mean, it's not just a Howie. It's just a long line of misses in the first round.
It absolutely is. Andre Dillard as well. But here's the other thing, Matt. I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
Turned it around. Andre turned it around.
Yeah. But here's the thing. It's that even though he's missed out on these picks, this team is still relevant. I mean, we haven't seen like a 3 and 3 and 14 or 3 and 13 season in quite some time. So this team,
we were 4-11 and 1 last year, but we were in contention. So
that's true. Yes. I just put last year out of my mind. What a debacle.
Well, because we were still relevant, so it doesn't feel like it felt like a 6-win season, but it was a 4-win season.
Right. So overall, I don't necessarily trust him with the first round picks, but I do think we need to acknowledge as Eagles fans where he's actually done a decent job. But I'm still nervous, dude.
Oh my gosh. So should the Eagles have the Giants, Washington again in Washington, and then Dallas.
Yeah.
Should they win 2 of those 3, they get in the playoffs. Does that answer the question for 2022 if Jalen is the quarterback, or should they get into the playoffs? This is still an open question.
I think it's still an open question because I think this Eagles organization has continued based on comments they've made, and I think based on their actions to an extent that they want to get better at the quarterback position. Now, hypothetically speaking, say things from a legal perspective tend to just either go away or diminish over time with Deshaun Watson. I mean, the Eagles are going to be in the market for him for sure because he's better than what the Eagles currently have at the quarterback position. We hear the rumblings of Russell Wilson. The Eagles have always had their eye on Russell Wilson. There was talk about potentially acquiring him in the past as well. Russell Wilson, I believe, being a better quarterback than what is currently there for the Eagles right now. I think the Eagles are always looking to get better at the quarterback position, Matt. And I don't think, even if Jalen Hurts gets them to the playoffs, that they believe that he is going to be that franchise quarterback of the future that they could potentially get somewhere else. Now, I believe that they got rid of their franchise quarterback in a manner that wasn't the best manner. They had a franchise quarterback, and they decided that based on broken relationships that they were going to move on from him. But with Jalen Hurts, I think that what's been interesting this season, and I think they see it too, as a lot of us Eagles fans do, that the Eagles don't win because of Jalen Hurts. They win with Jalen Hurts. And I think in this NFL, where it is a passing league, even though the Eagles are running very effectively, but even though it is a passing type of league, we know that Jeffrey Lurie and the front office, they want to have that prototypical quarterback under center. And I think that they want to probably explore that more. Now, does this mean that I think that Jalen Hurts isn't going to be the quarterback next season? No, he very well could be, but I think the Eagles are going to look to see if they can get better at that particular position. I think that's something that they've consistently tried to do over the years.
Where would they have to, how far would he have to get them to get to that place where he's safe?
I think I honestly think
this season, yeah.
I think the NFC Championship, where he'd be safe. I honestly think that's my gut reaction.
Yeah.
Where if Jalen Hurts
Agreed.
was to get them there, but again, I go back to what I said. This team doesn't win because of Jalen Hurts; they win with him. But if for whatever reason in the playoffs the Eagles win because of Jalen Hurts, because of fourth quarter comeback win and victory, and him just taking the game into his hands, then yes, I can absolutely see a scenario in where they say, okay, he's going to have to be our quarterback of the future because we're pinned against a wall here, something like that. So I think that's the type of scenario that I could see where Jalen Hurts does come back next year as the definitive quarterback of the future.
Yeah, because they'll flirt throughout the whole offseason. If he doesn't get, like you said, I agree with you. Even if he gets into divisional, they have a exciting first round showing. If they get in and they have exciting first game, they win, they get to the divisional round, maybe lose by a touchdown or whatever the case may be. That leaves the door wide open. Actually, it puts them in a position to get additional draft capital.
It does. I mean, at that point, Jalen Hurts actually kind of becomes a trade piece as well.
Yes. But if he gets to an NFC championship, I think that this team has learned from its history. My personal belief is that we should have never let Nick Foles go again. That you just got to go with performance and just, all the analytics and everything. Does the guy get wins? Does the guy perform well when you need him to? And all of the feelings and everything else has to get in line behind that.
Yep.
So should they get there, then they've got to just, whatever blinders they need to put on. Okay, this is our guy. He's got his limitations. We need to get players to surround him. Short of that, Jalen Hurts might not be here. And I like the guy. I think he's a good leader. I think he's a good player. But if he doesn't get there, I think this team is obsessed with, like you said, improving at the quarterback position.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Matt. Honestly, I love Jalen Hurts. I love him for the leadership aspects that you just talked about, the work that he has put in to get himself where he is at, because really wasn't necessarily graded as a second round pick. And for him to get to where he is at right now is phenomenal from a work ethic standpoint. And I love to see that in any player, let alone the quarterback position for my team. But I look at his footwork and I look at his pocket management and the fact that it really just hasn't manifested itself over this past year. And it's a win now type of league.
Yeah.
And that's why I said what I said.
Yes. No, it's totally accurate. And I think it's fair too. I think Jay, that is the one thing I do appreciate the most about Jalen is that you can just tell that he is so dead set on improving. Like he'll throw a laser touchdown and walk off the field. It's like kind of like Kawhi Leonard in basketball. There's no emotion. He throws a great touchdown. He's not so excited. He gets yelled at by Nick Sirianni for a bad fumble. He's got the same reaction.
Exactly.
But you can tell he's fiery. So I really appreciate that. So again, we're Philadelphia fans, so of course we're going to get carried away a little bit here. We still got 3 games to win. If we want to get there, who's the team that you think stands in the way, either from a perspective of beating us in the last 3 games and keeping us out, or from making that 7th? I think we're the only place we can go is the 7th because the 49ers beat us and Dallas is going to win the division.
I honestly think there's 2 teams to look out for. At the beginning of this season, Matt, I was very high on the Minnesota Vikings just based on their 2 position players that are dominant in Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. Now, look, as long as those 2 gentlemen are healthy, I honestly believe that they have a shot, because for as much flack as Kirk Cousins gets, and rightfully so, he's not a terrible quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. And quite frankly, the Minnesota defense is not a terrible defense. They have flashed a bit recently, and albeit against the Chicago Bears in Week 15. But I think the Minnesota Vikings have that opportunity to possibly be a spoiler for the Philadelphia Eagles. And yes, they play the Rams, Packers, but they end with the Bears too. So I think that Bears game could actually make itself to be extremely important for the Minnesota Vikings. I do. But then the other team, which I can't believe I'm getting ready to say this, but the New Orleans Saints. I mean, look, they're not beating anybody in the playoffs with Taysom Hill throwing the ball the way that he's throwing it. But man, Dennis Allen's defense is feisty.
Ooh.
It's feisty. And I go back to what I said earlier about, playoff football, or if teams are going to be trying to get to the playoffs. Defense matters so much. And the Saints' feisty defense is getting it done. I mean, seriously, let them rematch the Bucs another 3 times. And, the Saints just have the Bucs numbers, but the Saints' remaining schedules, the Dolphins, the Panthers, and the Falcons. I could easily see them based on their schedule. And I know the Eagles have the easiest remaining schedule with the Giants, Washington, and Dallas. But I could see the Saints playing spoiler here.
Yeah. You gotta root for the Panthers and the Falcons, because really they're eating our dust now.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, go Falcons,
right?
Go Panthers. If the Vikings were to win even one of the next 2 games for themselves, I think honestly they kind of deserve to be in the playoffs.
If they beat the Rams or the Packers, yeah, I would agree.
They're a playoff team. I mean, it's next month that they would play them. So these are essentially playoff games. And really that means if the Eagles are even in the discussion for like, we tied, that's because we either lost to the Giants, who no playoff team should lose to,
right?
Or Washington. Again, at this point, they're a division foe, but they should be taken care of. And then you got Dallas, who knows if they're locked in or. They
haven't been playing all that well. Honestly, the Dallas Cowboys have not been playing great football on both sides of the ball. I mean, listen, Trayvon Diggs is fantastic. He is a great corner, but their defense has not been playing stellar defense.
No.
And the offense with all of those weapons just not necessarily in sync. I don't know, man. Dallas could actually be a game for the Philadelphia Eagles last game of the season.
And that's why I was, getting to you're hitting the nail on the head, because I think actually there's been a lot of talk amongst us about, that last game of the year, if Dallas is sitting out their players. I actually think that the situation is shaping up to be that Dallas needs to play their players to get some momentum and get the ship headed in the right direction.
That's a great point.
So I don't think that they'll, and if the Eagles at that point are 9-7 and the Cowboys are 11 and whatever, that's like a playoff game. We're getting a playoff preview. So do they really want to sit their players out against Philly,
right?
And give Philly some momentum, a key to, we can beat these guys? I don't think so.
That key word, momentum, you just mentioned. Momentum is so critically important during these last few games of the season, not just for the Eagles, not just for the Cowboys, but so many other teams as well. The teams that we just were talking about, even with the Saints and the Vikings. I mean, you even want to talk about, the Falcons possibly being in it. Momentum is so completely important to these teams, where I don't necessarily think that Dallas is going to. We cannot predict what's going to happen 3 weeks from now when the Eagles play the Cowboys. We can't say, they're going to sit their players, blah, blah, blah. Conventional wisdom says, you know what, they're going to go run away with the division, but just because they're going to run away with the division doesn't mean they're going to sit their players. So let's pump the brakes, folks.
Yes.
Pump the brakes here. I completely agree with you, Matt.
Yeah, no, it's going to be at that point 2 playoff teams. Damn near playoff. Cowboys are in the playoffs. Philadelphia, even if they're in a position, let's say Philly only wins these next 2, they win 1 against the Giants or Washington. They're 8-8 at that point. Do they really want to put on tape the Philadelphia Eagles beating them?
Right. Exactly. What does that do to any momentum they may have coming into the heading into the playoffs?
Right. Absolutely. So last question I got for you today, the Giants, are giving up 10 points in the Vegas odds.
They're a terrible team. They're terrible.
Do you think? Personally, I think 10 points is in any divisional game. I think that's way too much.
I agree.
Unless you're Tampa Bay hosting New Orleans and you're going to score 0 again.
Unreal.
I think probably in my eyes, I think that this is a 27-20 football game today.
Mm-hmm. If Patrick Graham still has the Eagles' number, which he did, be the Giants' defensive coordinator during that Week 12 game, then the Eagles are going to have a tough time. If he, for whatever reason, Patrick Graham and that defensive personnel were able to just get in those gaps, get in those running lanes, and they were able to disrupt the Eagles' offense that had been trucking along and moving. And listen, sometimes what's past is prologue, and we see from history that certain coaches and players are able to just have a team's number at times during the season. I mean, we were just talking about the Saints and the Bucks. The Saints have the Bucks number for whatever reason. They couldn't even score against them recently. So it's interesting to think what this game should be and what it could be as well. And Matt, I think that you're absolutely right. I'm not going to take the 10 and a half points. I think that's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. And I think the over under is like 40 and a half or something. I don't know. I think it's going to be another low scoring type of game unless this team wins because of Jalen Hurts. And I think that could be the difference in this game where the Eagles could be a 13. They could they win by 13 points? Yes. And they could do it if Jalen Hurts is just on fire and if he's able to complete some passes down the field. But I do think that 10 points is definitely 10 and a half is definitely a lot in a division game like this. I'm still picking the Eagles to win, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be as decisive as that.
I would love to see it, right? But
yeah,
10 and a half is a lot.
It is.
They do have some third string guys starting today, so that helps. But
right.
So define for the listeners what you mean win because of Jalen Hurts, just so we're clear, so nobody says that you're saying that Jalen Hurts is just holding on to the team.
No.
Yeah.
No. I don't necessarily think that. I think what I mean by that is having that superstar talent of being able to win down the stretch because of him. I'm talking about final drives of the game, being able to really pull out a win. If you're down 23-20 in the fourth quarter, that you know that you can count on your quarterback to get down the field, to score a touchdown, not just a field goal in that situation, but to score a touchdown and win in that manner because of the quarterback situation. And they're only,
you're talking top 5 talent. That's what you're saying.
Basically, yes, that's what I'm saying. And listen, there are teams that throughout the NFL that have success in situations where they have a quarterback where they don't necessarily win because of the quarterback, that they win together as a team. And that's what I'm saying. That's what this Eagles team has done in their 7 wins. They've won with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts being that critical cog within that process, but not necessarily winning games because of him. They don't win games because he's not an Aaron Rodgers, and that's okay. He's not a Tom Brady. That's okay. That's fine. But that's the distinction. I hope I was able to explain that correctly there for you.
No. I totally get you. I just want to make sure that you get to say your piece, and so nobody says, "Oh well, it's Gardner time." Nobody thinks you're.
Oh, geez. No. He had a fine performance against the New York Jets, but no, I do not think Gardner Minshew, by any stretch of the imagination, is going to take this team to the NFC Championship game. No.
and the show is called Honorable Mention, so I gotta allow on the last show. Last few shows, I've been giving Mr. Rager a tough time because he deserved it. It was very bad football, but in the last game, he made a couple of key plays. He looked like he could catch the football.
He caught all balls. Yeah, he caught all balls that were thrown his way.
So I gotta give him some love because as much as we slam these guys, it's because we love the team and we want them to do well, and they're not making the plays that we know that they can make or they're in town to make. Last week or this week on Tuesday, even though we got a game today on Sunday, he did what he was supposed to do. I think the Eagles did what they were supposed to do in using him as a piece in terms of the slot position, because there are multiple guys who can play that position, and they asked him only to make the plays that they know he could make.
Right.
He is not Julio Jones or Antonio Brown or anybody like that. He's more of a Deebo Samuel-ish player, but poor man's Deebo Samuel. Use him that way, let him make some plays. So I just wanted to give him a little love.
Listen, you got to give players credit when they do deserve credit. My issue that I've really had with Jalen Reagor, if folks listen to Philadelphia Sports Table, is that it's even with special teams, and I don't necessarily know 100% if that is necessarily his fault or if it's new special teams coach Michael Clay's fault. You know, we don't know the intricacies of whose fault certain things are, but Jalen Reagor has made some awful decisions on special teams. And for me, if you listen to the PST podcast show, it is something that I talk about a decent amount over these years, is special teams are so important because of field position. And field position is so much in the NFL. It's a topic that often gets overlooked.
Yes.
And I think that certain players really help their team when it comes to field position. There are other players out there in the NFL that are a detriment to it. Jalen Reagor certainly has not helped this Eagles team, and the Eagles haven't helped themselves either by actually getting talent to be able to return punts. I mean, I'd rather see maybe Quez Watkins, who I believe is maybe a little bit more explosive on the punt return team, returning punts. But listen, you give a player credit when it's due. But overall, the sample size of Jalen Reagor and his career, whether we're talking about his offensive play or his special teams play, there's that living up to the expectation because he's a first-round talent. And sometimes I think maybe he gets kind of lumped into other first-rounders when he probably shouldn't have been in the first round in the first place. You know,
that's their fault. That's the Eagles' fault.
It's the Eagles' fault. You know, I mean, the Eagles are the ones that drafted him. So I think Eagles fans need to realize that and recognize that. However, he's one of the worst wide receivers in the game of football and hasn't developed. And I think there's something to be said about that too, and the reasons why. Maybe a change of scenery would be good for him at some point down the road. I wish him all the best. Like what he did last week, as you said, Matt. But you know, Jalen, I mean, we've been ragging on him on our show, you know, and rightfully so. But I hope he does well down the stretch. I do.
He's not agile. He's in straight line. He's fast, but punt return is just if he was a 4th round pick, I think people would still be like thrilled and like looking forward to seeing him make plays. No, like want him to make it through. But he was a 1st round pick. You're playing him at you know, X receiver. You're playing him at punt returner, kickoff returner, and he makes no plays on special teams. You bring it up,
plays, and just bad decisions. Like, I'm not going to fair catch this. You know, if he's at the 8-yard line, I'm not going to fair catch this, but I'm going to let it get back to the 2 or the 1 and let it be down by the other team. That's just, I see that, and I'm like, that is a potential. That 5 yards could mean a lot for this drive in terms of a potential field goal.
And the commentators don't talk about it. So like only like people who love the game and, you know, really appreciate like the intricacies notice like these are horrible special teams plays.
Yes, absolutely. Nerds like us, we get it. We get it.
It's horrible. It's just horrible. But good game last. Break that today, Jalen, if you're listening. Before
absolutely.
The game.
Yes.
Well, Jeff, really appreciate it. It was a great time having you on, and would love to have you back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, see you guys soon. Take it easy.